Hey, I want to welcome our listeners to the Rabbi Avi Show. So good to have you with us. We appreciate your interest. This episode, entitled Faith and Friendship, is going to deal with a very, very dear friend of mine who I didn't expect to become a friend, Pastor Jeff Logsdon of Hope City Church. He's really not just a pastor, as you're going to hear, but he's a kindred spirit. We've been together at key moments in our lives, helping each other, supporting each other, coming up with innovative ideas to help our collective communities, setting it up in such a way that even folks in our two communities, in my synagogue congregation, Beit Shalom, and in his church, Hope City, that they can meet each other and get to know each other and use our common humanity in such a good way. So it's not just about our friendship, which is incredibly beautiful and profound, but it's about the positive ripple effect, the blossoming, and you're going to hear about that. You're also going to hear about the mission to Israel that he and I are leading June 1st, 2026. Then we're going to share information about that in the episodes to come and just in our community. So be on the lookout. We're going to put a lot of important information in the show notes. We want to thank you for being a valued listener. Hope that you'll like our show, that you'll recommend it, and that you'll enjoy this coming together of the Jewish community and the Christian community in this special way. All right, Pastor Jeff, so good to have you with me here on my brand new show, the Rabbi Avi Show. Just hope you're having a wonderful day.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's just jump right into it. Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Let's just go back to the beginning. Can you take us back to the first time that you and I met? Do you remember that?
Oh, vividly. I think the culmination of events that led to that moment was this realization that we were wanting to know if there was somebody within the Jewish community that we could connect with, be friends with. I like to tell people that it's kind of like revisiting maybe the years where you're on the playground or maybe moving into a new neighborhood and maybe going, I don't think this happens as much today, but going door to door, knocking on doors and wondering if somebody's got a kid in the house that you could be friends with. And I don't know that it was so much like that on your end, but on our end with the group of people that I get to do life with here at our church, we were literally praying for 9 months that there would be somebody that we could connect with. And when I say that, know that there were people that we called, that we tried to extend that invitation to, and for reasons that I think were probably legitimate to them and well-intended, they just said, no, thank you. We don't want that. We don't, for what maybe personal reasons, didn't agree with that invitation. And so I remember a friend of ours, Carrie, visiting your congregation at the invitation of someone that was part of your board and a sweet mutual friend of both of ours today. But after Carrie met Ann, she came back to me and she said, Jeff, there is a person that reminds me of you, and I think you guys would hit it off. And so Carrie set the stage for our interaction. But I think going into that initial meeting with you, I remember minutes turned to hours. I remember it being as long as, if not longer than 3 hours. I remember your beautiful wife called during that time, if not several times, wondering why you weren't home yet. And, you were gracious in your interactions with me and your conversations with your bride and saying, the two of you agreed to push that time back and just allowing us the space to be able to connect. Two things stood out to me from that time. One was a challenge that I think really shaped how I see myself, but also how I wanted to not be seen in my interactions with you or with the shul. And it was this statement that Christians are transactional, they're not relational. in our interactions at the Jewish Community Center, there's another phrase that I think gets referenced on occasion, and it's this phrase that it is complicated. And I think just because of the ways that we see the world in different through different lenses or different filters, it is complicated. I think coming to you openly and saying, I know that I will probably say something that could be misunderstood or potentially offensive, just asking for grace from the start to better understand so that I wouldn't be offensive. But I think that statement about Christians being transactional and not relational really hit home, because I do believe that there was truth to that, in the sense
Was
that
that coming
generally
from was that
Christians...
coming from me?
No, say it again.
Was that coming from me, that idea that Christians, because I don't feel that way, that Christians are transactional.
It was a comment that you did make as an observation at that time, but I think the thing that really struck me was that this idea, and I asked you to clarify, and you said that in the way that we experience our own faith communities, the perception with the Christian community is that people, and if not at our church, in churches in general, that people will come at a certain time, leave at a certain time, and that's kind of it. But in the Jewish community, it's more relational. And what I've come to observe in the shul is someone's not there for a service. There's an honoring of weddings. There's an honoring of, a rite of passage for a young man or a young woman who's becoming of age. There's honoring of loved ones who have passed. There's anniversaries. It really is whole life. And by the end of it, by the end of the time, that's not even the end of it. There's the chance to be able to have a meal together. And then there is the think tank afterwards. And so why I believe that was important was because had you not said that, when I came back to our leaders, our friends here at my church, what we were wondering is if we could genuinely be a friend to you, to people in the Jewish community.
And why were you looking to make friends with them?
It was a challenge that was placed in a room full of pastors from someone by the name of Pastor Hagee, who felt impressed upon himself at one time when he was at the Western Wall in Israel, and God in his description tapped him on the shoulder and directed him to a rabbi that was there beside him and invited him to be a friend to the rabbi. And what came from that was a sweet relationship that led Pastor Hagee to invite me to go to Israel in 2019. That invitation was extended to invite Heather and myself to Texas, where they began to walk us through the history of the people of Israel. And before Pastor Hagee's invitation, I was completely naive to all of that. And because of that, he, at the end of our meeting time in Texas, after sharing what felt like drinking from the fire hydrant over several days, the history of the people of Israel, it was like, this is what the people of Israel have endured, and will you, Pastor? It wasn't directed to me personally, like in a one-to-one setting. It was Pastor Hagee to a room full of Christian pastors. Will you be a friend to the people of Israel? And in that moment, I felt like that was something that I wanted to do, but, trying not to make decisions in a vacuum and drag people along with me, it was, to our friends, is this something we want to be a part of collectively? Which I have appreciated, because going back to that statement between transactional and relational, it could have easily been me just showing up, having a 3-hour meeting with you, and then checking in once a year to say hello. And I think what we will unfold during our time together now is going to reveal something that is so much sweeter than that, because of that statement, that it has compelled me to say, that's not who I want to be. That's not what I want this relationship, our friendship, to be a part of. And so I know you've got a question that you want to get to about the time beyond that moment, but I look forward to those times. And you made
Yeah,
a statement at the end of our time together during that first meeting as you walked me out, and that comment was, "I don't feel alone anymore." And I'll
wow.
let you speak to that, but for me, that was something that was deeply touching and very significant.
I appreciate you jogging my memory on that. It's for me the whole friendship that we have is much more beyond that initial meeting, so it's not crystallized in my
Yeah.
mind. I kind of think of just all the interactions and all the time that we spent together. But I'm glad that you're bringing. When you say that, now I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I don't think that I really had any colleague, Jewish or Christian or any persuasion, another clergy person in Tucson that I really felt a strong connection to at that point.
Yeah.
And so, and at that point, I knew that I had someone that I could trust and that I could commiserate with and share experiences with. And I think I was spot on that. But what were your impressions from that? Besides that, what were your impressions from that initial conversation?
So many. I mean, I think of the similarities in the way that we saw I don't want to call it a vocation. To me, it's a way of life. But the way that we see the the opportunities that we get to be a part of, like many of the things that endeared me to you, and this probably plays into another question about shared values, is that you're someone that I believed is real, who is transparent. It's not a facade or not trying to be perceived as something you're not. I think your deep love and devotion for God and for learning. Um, I know that you have acknowledged that we're in similar life stages. I know we both had daughters that were at U of A at the same time before my daughter graduated recently. And our spouses are a lot alike. And one of the ways that I characterize that is I appreciate that we have people that in our wife, my wife, your wife, that they're secure in who they are, which to me goes a long way because it gives me the freedom, it gives us the freedom to be more of who we need to be for the people that God is calling us to support and to be there for. One of the other things that I appreciated in our time as I got to know you is neither of us we didn't set out to pursue what I would categorize as ministry. It's something that found me and sounded like it found you, but it's just really sweet uh, to be in this time of life together and to have a lot of those connections. It's kind of like two sides of the same coin. There's a whole separate side of that in the kinds of communities that we get to lead as I've gotten to be a part of the shul there with you is the diversity, the eclectic nature of the people that are there, the socioeconomic range, the political range, which I think speaks a lot to the kind of leaders that we get to be, the community engagement, and the reality that no matter where people come from, that there is a care and concern for the various walks of life that are a part of our faith communities. So, I mean, to me, there's just a whole lot. Carrie was right. There is so much of a kindred spirit there that just makes it really easy to connect. And it's sad that those kinds of things are rare, but when they make themselves known, like for me, speaking personally, you hold on to those things.
Not long after we met, you made a decision that maybe in hindsight feels a little bit providential, but you decided to attend services at Beit Shalom for the very first time, and it happened to be on our holiday of Shmini Atzeret.
Mm-hmm.
It was Saturday, October 7th, 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe what it was like for you at that time, as a pastor sitting in a synagogue for the first time, maybe, or one of the first times, on the very morning that we all learned eventually of the horrific massacre that was unfolding? What was going through your mind? What was going through your heart?
Oh, I mean, that is a rough time in history to be able to point back to mark a significant connection that we got to share together. And maybe it is a way to crystallize that statement that you mentioned previously, like, I don't feel alone anymore. It's one thing to hear Pastor Hagee walk a room full of pastors through the history of Israel. It's another to see it unfolding before your eyes. And one of the things that I look back on is my own embarrassment, because I'm able to be in shul and to look at my phone as somebody that maybe doesn't adhere to the same things that someone would in a synagogue on a Sabbath or Shabbat. But initially, the things that were coming through was, it's a dozen people who were killed, lost their lives in this time, and what we have learned today, that there were more than 1,200 who lost their lives, and the magnitude of that and the number of people that were affected. And for the Jewish community, you can't be a part of the Jewish community without knowing somebody personally, or knowing somebody who knows somebody that lost their lives on that day of October 7th. And it's hard to say that it was an honor to be with your community there in that time, because I don't know that that's the right choice of words. I mean, it's a moment that I think in many ways you would love to undo, and yet I think that God does not waste anything, and seeing what has come from that now could be all the more, I don't know what it may give rise to for the freedom of the people in Israel and the oppression they've faced. I don't know. It's such a pivotal moment. Let me go back and say, leading into that, there were some things that were happening that felt like a holy moment in the days before, because I was there in the evening when you unrolled the Torah scroll. Was it Friday evening?
Yes.
In being present in the room when you got to unroll the Torah scroll and to see it in its fullness that way. And then I remember another rabbi invited me into the middle of that circle as it was unrolled, and just the sacred moment that felt like, I will never forget it. I remember, my choice of words, if someone from our Jewish audience is listening to this, might be embarrassing for me to say it, because I'm not sure of the right choice of words. But like when you get married in a wedding, is it the huppah?
Yes.
And so it seemed like it was
chuppah.
that kind of a feel with the taking of and it was sacred, but the taking of the, was it a talit or a prayer shawl, in opening it up for the children to come under that while a blessing was being read, and to be given the opportunity to hold the corners of that prayer shawl while the kids were gathered under it, while they were reading a blessing or sharing a blessing to the kids. That is the moment that led into October 7th. And that entire weekend, I think, just really, I would say, galvanized a connection with, not just with you, but with the people there in your congregation, in a way that can never be taken away from us.
It meant a lot for me personally. I mean, just to have you right then and there as we were learning what was happening, and you saw me break down. I get emotional a lot. I can get emotional when I shouldn't be emotional, but that was a moment that we were all struggling as to what to do. Also, in the morning, at that point, we knew what had happened. And people were wondering, is it appropriate for us to go on with this holiday and with the joy that comes from Simchat Torah? We just completed learning the whole cycle, chanting through the whole 5 books of Moses, and coming to the end as we do every year and having this celebration and dancing and singing. And we didn't feel like it, on the one hand, we didn't feel like it was appropriate for us to do those things, to dance and sing. And on the other hand, we felt like that was the best way to fight against those who were trying to murder us and to harm us, and to have an ally there, to have a friend who had, just become so close, and we realized we had all this commonality, and then you were there almost to bear witness to what was going on, not knowing that that's what you were doing. I mean, it was very emotional for me. I think everybody in synagogue too, and and you've learned that the Jewish people are not the most trusting people because of all of the people who have, throughout history have tried to harm us. And so when we have somebody come into the synagogue that wants to be our friend, there's some people raising eyebrows, but you were there in the kind of depth of our pain, as a people, and it was so soothing to have that, and to have you to know that you were having what I would call a positive Jewish experience, even in that negativity.
Mm-hmm. Well, and as you were describing it, or even trying to find the words to describe how to respond to what was happening, I think there was a realization that the people of Israel were, through an unfortunate, a disgusting, a sickening turn of events, were able to find common ground in that for a moment, and to be able to come together in something surrounding the atrocities of that event. The trust you speak of, I don't take lightly. That is something that I feel privileged in the relationships where it exists. But, the distrust that has been there, I think for me, going back to the interactions with Pastor Hagee and why it exists, specifically with the Christian community, because of the ways people under the banner of Christianity have persecuted the Jewish community. Like a lot of those things I just was not familiar with. It would be easy for someone younger to say, well, that wasn't me, I didn't do it, and to expect someone on the other side of the table to just get over it. But I don't think that's the right response. And I think trying to search for a way to understand the depth of pain and not speak in a way that is trite about that is really just doing the best that I can to sit with somebody who is still very much faced with that pain. And then October 7th resurfaced all of that all over again. You gave me the opportunity to share with your synagogue one Shabbat. And to me, it was important to say, in as much as I am able, I just want to ask for forgiveness for the hurts, the things that have happened to them on behalf of Christians. And the people that came up to me, these were people who either endured the Holocaust or had family members that endured the Holocaust say, you have no idea what that meant to me. And many of them said they have never heard those words from somebody in my position that was able to give them a release from that hurt and that pain. And so I think trust is not something that can be taken. It has to be earned. And I do feel like that's something that we continue to build upon together. That is, I think, not just healing for my friends, the congregation, the people at the shul, but it's also for our church as we seek to understand what the people of Israel, what the Jewish community has endured.
You mentioned that it wasn't just about Jews and Christians in our case here, but it was also in that moment in the state of Israel, we had religious Jews, secular Jews, really bridging the gap and coming together in the in the aftermath and in the process, in the tragedy of October 7th and the many months that followed, and people, and I appreciate you mentioning that, because one of the things that was healing to see, and it's unfortunate that it's not as long lasting as it was one would like, but it was healing to see ultra Orthodox Jewish people making food for people, for soldiers in the army.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also beautiful to see soldiers having religious expressions, starting to keep kosher, or say traditional Jewish prayers, putting on what we call tefillin. All of these things were happening within the Jewish community, and we're already back to infighting.
Yes.
But that was a special moment to know that was happening, and at the same time we were having a friendship. And I'm proud to say that our relationship and the bridges that we've built, if you want to call them bridges, were not short-lived, but have intensified, I would say. And you've gotten to know our congregation, and we've gotten to know your congregation. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But besides that, you kept coming back. It could have been a one-time event. It was like, wow, this was an incredible event that we had. But you just kept coming back to synagogue, to shul. You even use the Yiddish word for synagogue. You say shul. You're very comfortable with the lingo.
Mm-hmm.
And what was it that compelled you to continue, joining our community for services for many weeks that followed? And what did you discover when you were with us?
I do think it goes back to the juxtaposition between what it means to be transactional versus relational. I think for me, as a student of the people that I am with, I want to know what they enjoy, what's important to them. And so I think when we had a conversation together as a team and making this idea, and I'm referring to a team that I get to be a part of at our church, is that this was a decision to make a relational commitment to Congregation Bet Shalom. And the relational commitment means that it's bigger than a phone call once a year, in maybe the way someone else who's more superficial would want to embrace a relationship. And so what does community look like in that context? I think what I had come to understand is that wanting to and getting to be a part of the Shabbat means being there at 9 and hanging, like blocking the day until 3:00. I think most recently I showed up at noon. That feels dirty to me for some reason. I don't like to walk into the tail end of a movie. I want to be there from the beginning. But I think knowing that 9 to 3 is that range, for me as someone who leads our church on Sunday mornings, that means Saturday is normally a prep day for me, so things have to be done ahead of time. There can't be meetings, which it's a big meeting day for us. It's also a big celebration day for people if they have birthdays. I know at the end of the month we've got a funeral. So to be a part of Shabbat service on a regular basis is quite the challenge. But I literally go through the calendar and look for spaces where I can block that off. And you asked why. I think it's many reasons. The people, the relationships that I have come to know there, and I can list off countless names of people. I look forward to seeing them every time I'm there. I look forward to hearing what's going on in their lives. I think beyond the relationships, there's a deeper learning that I feel I get to be a part of. I think there's a rich heritage that I get to experience in the faith and the life of the Jewish community. I think there's a love, a respect, an understanding that is all a part of that. The festivals, the holy days, the rhythms of life, it is contrary to a lot of the things that people do in general, whether they're part of a faith community or not. And to me, the perspective that I think all of those things afford, I mean, I know it's made me a better person. It's given me a fuller picture of life.
I feel like our friendship and our trust has definitely deepened, and I feel that way towards members of your church as well.
Mhm.
And I gotta say, you were saying that Saturdays oftentimes are a prep for Sundays. I feel like that still has happened because I sometimes eavesdrop online on what your message, your sermon, and your church, and what you end up saying, and there have been weeks where you've talked about, hey, I had this experience over at Bet Shalom, and it'll work into it. It ends up becoming prep for what you were doing. You're able to kind of accomplish two goals at the same time.
There is a rabbi that's a part of Congregation Bet Shalom that during Kiddush pulled me aside and said, I hope you experience God here. And there is maybe a little bit of a cynicism. I wonder who's scowling and they're not letting me know that they're doing that, because I would imagine the cynicism is running more broadly than I would understand. But this particular rabbi, we've come to have just such a sweet connection. But the question was, I hope that you experience God here. And I said, of course I do. And it is exactly what you say. It is interesting in my mind how the Spirit of God works, because you don't know what's being shared on Sunday morning, but there are times, and it's happened multiple times, where I walk in there and things that I have been prepared for Sunday, you're talking about in the Parsha, or somehow it comes out in the discussions, maybe in the think tank. And to me, that's totally how God works, is like thematically weaving his tapestry together, through our interactions. And so I loved that the question was asked, but I had to say absolutely.
I want to just switch gears now, because it didn't just happen. It's not the only angle of our interactions is either, getting together and talking, or you coming to Bet Shalom, or even me. And I've also visited your church and had wonderful experiences there as well in different ways. But we've deepened that connection. We've expanded it. We've collaborated on some really what we call chesed, in one aspect, social action project that we do regularly. Will you tell our listeners about our monthly peanut butter and jelly sandwich making, and the chesed work that brings Hope City Church and Congregation Bet Shalom, and even the JCC, the Jewish Community Center, together in our sanctuary to feed the unhoused?
Yeah, and maybe a little bit of context before you even say that. One of the challenges that Pastor Hagee gave the Christian community was to host something called a Night to Honor Israel. And I feel like the trajectory of our relationship happened so quickly that trying to force something like a Night to Honor Israel almost felt like a step backwards. It felt like something that was programmed, and I'm not a big program person. I think just talking to you and saying, like, what are the things you care about, and understanding what's important to you and to your community, we quickly understood that we both have a heart. I mentioned earlier, for people that come from all walks of life, but in Tucson, it lends itself to a lot of people from the unhoused community. And the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for us, I think what I was really trying to look for was, it's one thing for you and I to get together, you and me. It's another for us to facilitate environments where people from your congregation, from our church, to get together, where those relationships can happen naturally. And knowing that where we are placed in Tucson is really a highway for people that are transient by nature. And so we can't ignore that. Your heart for things that are our heart made it easy for us to find that common ground to say, let's get together once a month. Let's make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. The competitive side of the people that organize that, I love, because I have that competitive nature too. So every time we're getting together, we're wondering if we can make more sandwiches in less time. And it's become so enjoyable. And then after that, knowing we get to go and distribute those to people in the community together immediately following, and seeing what it means to them, I think has been a really natural way to build on the relationship that you and I have, and to extend it to people that may not ordinarily get those opportunities to be a part of a Shabbat together.
It's really been beautiful to witness that. What have you seen happen as our congregations have started to work side by side, and what bonds of understanding have you witnessed developing among our people?
Yeah, you know what I love when I'm not directly there, and then I hear that, someone from our church has come and met with people from Bet Shalom, or they held a meeting together with other people in the community, and it's just seeing how all of these things have continued to expand on their own. You've introduced me to the Shliha from the Jewish Community Center, and different friends of yours from the JCC. And those are relationships. Like, we just recently got to be a part of helping behind the scenes with the Maccabi games, which was a neat thing I never would have known about here in Tucson when it happened. I know that lunch and learns and think tanks, and one of those that I know you're alluding to was us saying a night to honor Israel may not be like the thing that fits us, but what idea you came up with for us to do together was a trip to Rose Canyon Lake at Mount Lemmon and doing a picnic and game day together and hiking, which was so fun. Even now, as I think about that and we're talking about it,
really
I'm like,
was.
We got to do something like that again soon.
We do.
So those have led into, I think there was a moment where you called me. I was concerned because of the time of night it was. And like, what are you doing? Come over. And I was like, are you okay? But it just worked out. It's uncanny how it's worked out more often than not, because you're like, what are you doing? I'm at the JCC, come over for the think tank. And I'm thinking either there's a focal point I'm about to walk into, but it's never been that. It's always been, we just want to see you.
Just like, I just missed you, Jeff. I was like, what are you doing right now? Maybe you want to come have lunch with us.
To literally be on that side of town in minutes away, it's like, sure, like I happen to be free. I'll come over, and to see everybody. Awesome. And as often as that happened, you used the phrase schlepping to Phoenix. It was, your mom's passing. And I don't have to say, may her memory be a blessing. I know her memory is a blessing. But to be invited into that space with you, to go to Phoenix, was an honor. To be with your family, to be present in that moment for you and for your family. And those are things that just bring, I use the word joy, knowing that I just talked about your mom's service, but joy transcends happiness. Joy is something that is there in difficult times and in good times. And it's just acknowledging that God is in all of those moments. And I think the things that we get to be a part of together are encapsulated there.
That was, I wasn't even thinking about that, but that was such an incredible moment for me personally, to have you there with me in that moment of grief as we were laying my mother to rest.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect to even be dealing with that at this point. And some of these things are just kind of curveball situations that come up, and when you're there for someone, it makes a big difference. I remember your father-in-law was in the hospital, and you told me about it, and I said, would it be appropriate for me to come visit him and say a prayer? And that was also a huge moment. And there's moments like those, and I think which takes us to the next segment that I want to talk about, which is coming to the point where we realized we want to lead a mission to Israel, to the land of Israel. And we have this shared connection, you and I, our communities here, but we also have a shared love for Israel. And we maybe it's the most ambitious project that we've had so far, to lead a joint mission to Israel this coming June of 2026. And by the way, if anyone's listening out there and would like to join us, please put a comment, reach out to us. And by the way, like this podcast and recommend it to your friends. But we'd like to hear about it. We're putting the information together, and we're excited about this unique kind of trip, because it's not just like a Jewish Christian solidarity or a stale thing. This is you and I are very, very close friends. We absolutely love each other. We adore each other, and we want to do this for us.
Yes.
And we want to share it. You and I think selfishly would just like to enjoy going to Israel together. So why not bring like a whole bunch of other people and have that happen?
So that's a question that gets asked a lot, running into people from the shul out in the community and throughout Tucson. Have you been to Israel? And, for those that have made Aliyah and been there, it's familiar. It's less familiar oftentimes to someone in my position. I appreciate someone like Pastor Hagee making that opportunity available, because it was something I never imagined getting to be a part of. But having been there, it reshapes the way someone understands the media and the things that are being put out there right now. Because once you have been, there is a dichotomy, a very real dichotomy that you become more aware of. And having had that experience, in looking back on that with such great memories, I remember being there in Israel, and what I appreciated from Pastor Hagee is he didn't expose us to only the Christian things or only the Jewish things. We had interactions with Palestinians, with Arabs, with I may be embarrassed to say I own a keffiyeh, because it was one of the things that you bought because it was a memento. And now it's like, oh, now I know what that means. Maybe I don't know if I should be doing that. But stupid stuff. Just to put myself on blast for your listeners, I bought a jacket that had the IDF logo on it, and I wore it to the Muslim quarter. And got kicked out of the Muslim quarter. And then I wore the keffiyeh to the Jewish, and got kicked out of another area. It was like, I just was so ignorant. But
it was a learning experience.
Oh yeah, it was a painful learning experience. And I don't even know what to do with either of those things. But I think being able to go back to Israel together and to share that with people from both of our communities, it creates a vivid picture and understanding of the culture. I think more than anything, being able to see your country through your eyes, the things you love and what's important to you, for me, having been there once, would be all the more enriching for the relationship we share. And I appreciate also, that you're willing for the people that are coming with us to be able to say, what's important to you? What do you want to see? Knowing that we have different perspectives. And I think that's another one of the things that that's endeared me to our relationship and to, the faith communities we get to lead, because there's a selflessness and a desire to honor each other and appreciate each other and the perspectives that we have.
It's important for me, at this point to mention that in terms of our friendship, the ground of our friendship was really fertilized by a previous one. My friendship with Pastor Victor Stiersky, who was a guest on my other podcast, Horizontal Conversations, it really opened the door for me to feel comfortable becoming friends with you, for making this possible. It was a special moment when you and Victor were in the same spot about a year ago for the CUFI summit in Washington, D.C. And I said, you guys got to meet each other, and you got to tell our listeners about that moment.
All of it is Victor. Well, first of all, you know, you're texting both of us on a thread, and it's a room of thousands of people. And I'm like, help me know where to meet you. And his only descriptor of himself was his height and his haircut. And I'm like, how in the world am I going to find that person in a room this big? And it was like this magnet for the room because of his history and his relationship with Kufi. It was almost as if I walked into this room of thousands and the light was shining through this building on Victor Stierski. And I was like, that's got to be him because of the height and the haircut. And it was neat. I mean, he's just a larger than life personality, but the love and affection he continues to hold for you, for Tucson, for the Jewish community, for Congregation Bet Shalom, you know, kindred spirits. And that was a great connection. I appreciate that he found you when he did, that you found each other, and the ways that you built the foundation for me to kind of step into.
It was a thrill for me, even here in Tucson, to know that was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I gotta say, you know, I've been friends with Victor for a very long time, but he's not of my generation, and it's really been special for me to meet somebody who's really my age. Even though I give you a hard time because you're a couple years older than I am, but we're really in the same walk of life, and we have, as you underscored before, we have so many similarities in terms of what's going on in our lives right now with our children, with our spouses, with just where we are in our ministries, if you will. It's really you're a special guy, and I know that you and I are going to be friends for many, many years, for the rest of our lives. And I also know that you'll be on this podcast again, and I'll pop up and make my way into your church when you least expect it.
Well, I think we'll have to make time to have you come and share again. There's just so many. I remember getting to be a part of one of the more significant holy days with you and being asked, why, Jeff, are you even here? Like, why are you putting yourself through this? Because of the fasting that was involved. And, you know, I have a love for food for those listening that makes it even more difficult to do those kinds of disciplines. But, you know, wanting to truly be present and be a part of the things that are important to our friends, to my friendship with you and in your faith, I think I feel like I'm just scratching the surface, and time is precious. I don't know how much of that we get, but wanting to make the most of all of it and to find out ways that we can be an encouragement and a support. I think these are some of the things that we've come to really accentuate in our relationship with each other and with my church, with your shul. So I do look forward to more of those opportunities.
I really hope that other people listen to this, just kind of scratching the surface of our relationship and what we've accomplished so far, and hope that people will want to emulate this. The story of our friendship, I think, is really proof that we don't have to agree on everything to love each other, to work together, and to bring light into this broken world. And for us, it started with one conversation, one act of showing up, one non-transactional moment, and it really opened our hearts. I really want to thank you, Pastor Jeff, for this conversation, and I want to encourage our listeners not only to find your own Jeff and your own Avi, but to find out how you can make a difference in so many different ways, and also by bringing people together, whether you happen to be Christian or Jewish, or whether you're from another tradition altogether. And how can we build bridges and create more humanity? Jeff is an amazing hugger, and that's another thing. You can't really sum it up into words. When you embrace someone and you really put your entire body and soul into an embrace like that, and it's just you have all that love and you give it And I know it's exhausting to give to our congregations, but you give it to the people that you're ministering to, and you give it to the people in your lives, and you've given it to me. I just love you so much, Jeff, and you're such a blessing in my life. So I just want to bless you that you continue the holy work. I really pray that God will bless you in the best of health to do what you're doing for many more years to come. Thank you for joining the Rabbi Avi Show.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for your friendship, your love, and for sharing your family and your shul with me and with us. We love you.